Naaman was a great general in the Assyrian army that conquered the northern tribes of Israel and vanquished them to other parts of the empire. Naaman's victory is said to have been caused by God because of Israel's sins against God. But neither Naaman nor the rest of Assyria worshipped Israel's God. Now, Naaman, though great, suffered from leprosy, a contagious disease that affected the skin, mucous membranes, and nerves, causing discoloration, lumps, and in severe circumstances, deformities. But through the Hebrew slave of Naaman's wife, the general was informed that a cure could be found at the hands of Elisha, a prophet in Israel. It was insulting enough for Naaman to seek a cure among the people he conquered. But when, to his surprise, he was actually cured, his eyes and heart was open to the realization that it was the God of the people he enslaved that now enslaved him. This discovery so radically disrupted his foundation of being that while he outwardly maintained the public persona of his king's confidant and adherent to his nation's God, inwardly and secretly, his true community and God were among the oppressed of the land. The occasion of Jesus healing the 10 lepers occurred in the same region Naaman was cured centuries before. However, the story indicates that the 10 lepers Jesus cured, of them, one was a Samaritan. Now, there's an old saying that misery loves company. For in their common condition of estrangement from the rest of the world, the 10 lepers shared a common misery. Yet in their cure, their differences stood out. Jews and Samaritans were forbidden from associating with each other. So the Samaritan could not present himself before the Jewish priests in the temple of Jerusalem, but neither could he return to his own temple on Mount Gerizim, having been cured by a Jew. And Jesus, according to the law of his people, had sullied himself, had dirtied himself by associating with lepers and a Samaritan. The only place for each of them to go was to each other. There's a song often sung at Christian revivals, written by Naksing, a 19th century native of India, who upon denouncing his former faith and professing Christ, was executed along with his family. His words most likely echoed those of the Samaritan. I have decided to follow Jesus. No turning back. My point is this: the Samaritan, Naaman, and Jesus were all subject to religious and political laws that prohibited any meaningful association with those unlike their own, and condemned their worship of any god foreign to their culture. But sometimes laws must be broken. Martin Luther King Jr. said in his letter from Birmingham jail, one has not only a legal but a moral obligation to obey just laws. Conversely, one has a moral responsibility to disobey unjust laws. In explaining the difference, he further wrote that any law that uplifts human personality is just. Any law that degrades human personality is unjust. Naaman chose to keep silent in the face of an unjust law against a people his nation oppressed. Jesus openly defied such a law, compelled by a greater law that demanded him to proclaim release to the captives, recovery of sight to the blind, and to set at liberty those who are oppressed. Sisters, brothers, and siblings of Christ, we live in an age where the clock is turning back to repressive times, where voting, civil, human, and reproductive rights are being challenged and overturned by moral and political dictates that, in my estimation, degrade the human personality. And we as Christians and spiritual seekers must decide how we will face our conscience, our children, and our communities in which we live in the face of such laws. The church has often been seen and sought as a spiritual escape from the harsh realities of the world, and to some degree, that is correct. We provide a haven of what life can and should be, away from the harsh realities of the way life is in the world. But more than this, the church should be a refuge where people are empowered by the Spirit of God and the convictions of Christ to defy the forces that oppress and dehumanize, and to set at liberty those who are oppressed, starting with ourselves. As Christians, for moral and political reasons, we find ourselves on all sides of issues involving human rights and social justice. And like Naaman, are urged to keep silent for our own sake and for the sake of those we love. But those we love look to us for examples of what it means to do what we claim to be. When God shows up as one who welcomes us with open arms despite our previous conditions, we wake up to the warmth of that embrace, craving the newness of life only God can offer. Wake up and smell the fragrance of food and manna from heaven that heals our wounds, cures our diseases, and restores us as children of one family and household of God. The Spirit of God compels us to wake up, face an unjust and broken world, and to break unjust laws that devalue human dignity, so that the brokenhearted of this world may be healed. Amen.